She was forced to marry a cold, ruthless billionaire at 23. But when she whispered 3 words on their wedding night, everything changed forever. What she said next will shock you. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why sometimes the most unexpected marriages create the deepest love. Stay until the end because the final twist will leave you speechless. She was only 23 when her world collapsed. Isabella Martinez stared at the marriage contract, her hands trembling as she read the cold, legal terms that would bind her to a man she'd never chosen. Alexander Kane. The name alone sent shivers through Asheville's business district. At 41, he was known for one thing: destroying anyone who stood in his way. Cold gray eyes, silver-streaked hair, and a reputation that made grown men tremble. "I don't have a choice," Isabella whispered to her reflection. Her family's restaurant empire was crumbling, drowning in debt. This marriage wasn't about love, it was about survival. She would be the perfect wife in public, and he would save her family from financial ruin. The wedding was a spectacle. 500 guests, crystal chandeliers, and a bride who smiled perfectly while dying inside. When Alexander said, "I do," his voice was as cold as winter stone. Their honeymoon suite overlooked the Pacific Ocean. Isabella stood by the window, still in her wedding dress, watching waves crash against the rocks below. She could hear Alexander moving behind her, removing his jacket, loosening his tie. "You're scared," he observed, not as an accusation but as a gentle statement. Isabella turned, expecting to see the cold businessman from the newspapers. Instead, she found gray eyes studying her with unexpected concern. "You don't need to be afraid. I'm not the monster they paint me as." "There's something you need to know about me," Isabella said, her voice barely above a whisper. She took a deep breath, gathering courage for the confession that could change everything. I've never been with a man before." Alexander went completely still. The words hung between them like a sacred confession. When he finally spoke, his voice was rougher than usual, loaded with emotion she couldn't decipher. "Look at me," he said softly. What she found in his eyes took her breath away, not disappointment or irritation, but something that looked like wonder. "Thank you for telling me," he said finally. "That changes everything." His hands moved to frame her face as if she were made of something precious and fragile. "May I continue?" he asked, echoing words that would haunt her dreams forever. But this wasn't just about physical intimacy. It was about him asking permission to care for her, to protect her, to love her. When dawn broke over the ocean, everything had changed. Isabella lay in his arms, watching golden light dance across the walls. The cold, ruthless businessman had disappeared, replaced by a man who held her like she was his salvation. But breakfast shattered the illusion. Alexander sat across from her, reading emails as if nothing had happened. The warmth from the night before had vanished, replaced by the familiar ice-cold demeanor. "We need to establish rules," he said, setting his tablet aside. "In public, we'll be the perfect couple. Smiles, affectionate gestures, everything expected of newlyweds. In private, we maintain our distance. What happened last night was necessary to validate the marriage." Isabella felt like she'd been slapped. "So I'm just a very well-paid employee?" she asked, her voice growing stronger with each word. "You can't just erase what happened between us. You can't pretend you didn't feel anything." "What I felt is irrelevant," Alexander replied, his voice perfectly controlled. "This is a business arrangement, Isabella. The sooner you accept that, the better for both of us." Something stronger awakened within Isabella. Pride, determination, an absolute refusal to be reduced to a mere object. "Fine," she said, straightening her shoulders. "If that's how you want to play it, then let's play." Their mansion in the mountains was beautiful, but lifeless. 3 weeks passed in polite, distant coexistence. Separate rooms, formal dinners, silent hallways that echoed with everything they weren't saying. Then, one evening, Isabella found him in the library, whiskey in hand, staring into the fire with an expression of pure exhaustion. For the first time since their wedding night, his carefully constructed walls were cracking. "Have you ever been betrayed by someone you thought loved you?" he asked suddenly. His voice was raw, unguarded. "Her name was Charlotte. We were married for 5 years. I thought I knew her. She was having an affair for 2 years with my business partner. They were planning to take half of everything I built and disappear together. When I confronted her, she just smiled and told me I was naive for thinking anyone could love a cold bastard like me for free. Isabella felt tears prick her eyes at the pain underlying every word. Suddenly, his behavior made perfect sense. "I'm not her," she said firmly. "I didn't choose to be here, but I am here and I won't be punished for someone else's crimes." "She took everything," Alexander whispered. "5 years of my life, half my fortune, and worst of all, she made me believe I was incapable of being loved for who I am." His mask had completely fallen away. "She was wrong," Isabella said, stepping closer. "The man who held me so gently our first night, who was so careful to make sure I felt safe, that man is capable of being loved. That man deserves to be loved." Something flickered in Alexander's eyes. "That man is dangerous, Isabella. He wants things he can't have." "Like what?" she whispered. He reached out, touching her face with trembling fingers. "Like you. God help me, but I want you for real." "It scares me too," she admitted, leaning into his touch. "Sometimes I think you see right through all my carefully constructed walls, and it makes me want to either pull you closer or run as far away as possible." "Don't run," she whispered. "I'm not her. I won't hurt you." For a moment, she thought he might kiss her. The pull between them was magnetic, undeniable. 2 nights later, a storm hit the mountains with furious intensity. Isabella was on her balcony watching lightning tear through the sky when she heard the front door slam. Alexander had driven through the storm because he couldn't bear another night apart. He stood in her doorway, soaked from the rain, trembling not from cold, but from the intensity of his emotions. "I couldn't stay away," he confessed, his voice breaking. "These past weeks of pretending I don't feel anything. It's destroying me." Isabella helped him out of his wet clothes, her hands gentle as she dried his hair, his face. The intimacy of caring for him, while he remained completely still, was almost unbearable. "You're killing me," he whispered, his hands covering hers on his face. "You see me, the real man behind all the armor, and somehow you still haven't run." "Maybe I don't want to run," she replied, and something broke in his expression. When he kissed her, it wasn't like their first careful kiss. This was pure hunger, years of loneliness pouring out in desperate connection. "May I continue?" he asked again, but this time loaded with so much more meaning. Dawn found them intertwined. The storm passed, but the transformation permanent. Alexander Blackwood, the ruthless businessman, had become someone else entirely, a man capable of love, of tenderness, of complete vulnerability. The next weeks were a revelation. Alexander came home earlier, worked from the home office, and dinners became long conversations about everything and nothing. He was learning to trust, to love, to be loved. Then came the morning that would change everything again. Isabella stared at the pregnancy test in her trembling hands. The 2 pink lines clear and undeniable. She was carrying Alexander's child. "I took a test today," she told him that evening, her voice shaking. "2 lines. I'm pregnant, Alexander." The silence that followed was deafening. She watched emotions race across his face. Shock, fear, then something that looked like wonder. "Pregnant," he repeated, his voice filled with awe. Then he was pulling her into his arms, his hands moving to her still flat stomach with reverence. "Isabella, I'm terrified, but I'm ecstatic. We're having a baby." Alexander knelt before her, placing his hands on her belly. "Hi, baby," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm your daddy, and I promise you'll never wonder if you're loved." But happiness, they would learn, often attracts the darkest forces. In an office across town, a woman with perfectly styled blonde hair was making phone calls, reviewing documents, planning something that would threaten everything they'd built. The charity ball at the Asheville Country Club was their first public appearance as a married couple. Isabella wore navy blue, elegant but understated, while Alexander was impeccable in his black tuxedo. But the whispers followed them everywhere. "Tell me, dear, where did you two meet?" asked Margaret Winston, the senator's wife, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Such a quick courtship. You must have swept him off his feet immediately." Victoria Ashford, Asheville's social queen, joined them with a predatory smile. We expected someone more like Charlotte, established, connected, someone from our world. The implication was clear. Isabella didn't belong. Alexander's arm tightened around Isabella's waist. And what exactly is our world, Victoria? His voice was deceptively casual, but carried an edge everyone recognized. The tension was becoming explosive. Would you like to dance? Isabella asked softly, her hand on Alexander's arm. She could feel his readiness for battle, but she chose a different path. On the dance floor, they found their refuge. But when the song ended, Margaret approached with reinforcements. I hope you don't mind me asking, but there are rumors circulating about why you married so quickly. Some people are saying there was a reason for the rush. The implication was cruel and clear. They thought she had trapped Alexander with a pregnancy. Isabella felt familiar anger surge, but this time it was different. This was about her family, her unborn child, her future. You're absolutely right, she said, stepping forward with a smile that was all teeth. There was a reason for the rush. As they left the ball that night, Alexander pulled Isabella close. I love you, he whispered, and I love our family. 6 months later, their daughter was born with her father's gray eyes and her mother's strength. Love, it turned out, really could conquer all. If you love this heartwarming story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more captivating romance videos.